I went back to the administrative segregation unit to see Ronald L. Sanford again. His story haunted me. A killer when he'd barely entered his teens.
RL, hi. How you doing?
I'm all right, yourself?
Good. How do you get accustomed to life in this environment?
It takes some getting used to. It's tough. There was a young man on the range, a very young man, maybe 19, 20 years old. He's exhibiting psychosis. They took him to see the psychologist because he's having trouble adapting. This is an abnormal environment for a human being, certainly. You know, these are essentially cages. And to think that we stay in them 24 hours, 23 hours a day, come out for an hour a day, it's taxing.
May I have a look in your cell about...
Absolutely.
Have a look at some of the books?
Absolutely. You absolutely may. So.
Yes, Lieutenant, would you mind opening up? I'd just like to have a look.
Yes, sir. You can take whatever down you want to take down.
And war against the weak, what's that about?
Eugenics.
Eugenics?
Yes, sir. America's attempt to make a master race, essentially.
And this one is the tree of life. What that's about?
Yes, it's Kabbalah, actually. It's more metaphysics, essentially. Those deep questions about man, where he comes from, where we're going, and who we are, essentially, yes.
I see that you have, in addition to your books, you have some of your own writing on the walls here. Strength, well-being, and health.
Yes. Just something I try to focus on. If there's anything I want to stay my mind on, as I always say, it's something progressive. So being strong and having a good disposition and being in good health are certain things I definitely want to focus on.
And you have written here, no man is your enemy, no man is your friend, every man is your teacher.
Yes, sir.
I'm also standing here, and I think these are the parameters of your existence.
Existence, absolutely. These four walls.
It's a pretty isolating place.
It really is, if you see it as such. It's isolated only to the extent that you think it is. You know, I mean, those books allow for a great escape and for to be able to leave the confines of the wall. So.
But I'm only in here for a few minutes, and I feel it as such. I feel it. I feel the isolation.
Everybody in this building feels the confinement that we're suffering here. You know, you put an animal in a cage for too great of a length of a time, it goes crazy. You know, how much more so humans? You know, so.
Nate G 219 here to help it back and better. Y'all know what it is, man. Another one coming at you. It's December 9th, 9:30 in the morning. You know, irrelevance. Hey, first, y'all, I want you to hit that like and subscribe, please. Need these subscribers up there. And hit the Cash App if you want to help donate and help me get my studio built up. And also maybe get some account set up so I can receive phone calls, do video visits, and maybe get some real interesting things and stories coming at you guys. Today I want to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit, you know. First, you know, my name's Nathan, guys. I battled addiction with heroin for a few years. Been off that for over 10 years now, so that's a battle that I have no issues with any longer. I'm not saying it could never be a possibility, because I always know it's a possibility, and that's why I don't go back to that. But my addiction led me into prison, and the prison it led me to initially was a minimum medium security. It was a very small medium security open dorm, and there was only 3 dorms there, 120 people maybe in each dorm. So not a whole lot of people at that prison. And a whole lot of things going on that by prison standards and prison rules should not be going on. It is what it is. It's prison, guys. Well, after getting in a little trouble, I ended up behind the wall in the maximum security prison, Indiana State Prison. And Indiana State Prison, guys, man, is a war zone. And I'm still today battling with PTSD. I still have nightmares just from some of the things I've seen, witnessed, heard, and some of the people I've met are nightmares in themselves. Some of them, though, were great men. My first story I had brought to you was about a guy named Ronald Sanford. At 13 years old, him and a 15-year-old friend named Sean Rowe had committed a very, very heinous crime together, and Ronald, therefore, was sentenced to 170 years. At the age of 15 years old, he was sentenced to 170 years. Sean Rowe, on the other hand, was sentenced to 5 and served 2 years and 2 days. Sean Rowe, actually, the older of the two, had went on to commit a pretty heinous crime as well. It was not taking lives, but it was some of them, kitty fiddler cases. And he ended up having to serve some more time, but, came back home. And still, my boy Ronald, who I'd met incarcerated, he was in the cell next to me, was left to serve 170 years in Indiana State Prison. And when Ronald arrived at this prison, he was 15. He was so young that they had to put him in the honor dorm for his own safety, because this prison was built to house people and keep them there for the rest of their lives, for the most part. Yes, people do go home, but not often. Most of the time, majority of the time, people are serving between 55 years, 65 years. That's an average murder conviction sentence. To, I know one doing 350 years, and not a life was lost. But the scarring he did to those women, he definitely deserved to serve 350 years. And too bad he can't stay alive for at least 250, because he deserves every bit of that. But Ronald Sanford was a man that, I'm not going to lie, in a little bit maybe scared me, knowing that he'd been there since 1987 or 88. I don't know exactly what year he went back there, or the crime happened in 87. So 88, 89, he went behind the wall of Indiana State Prison. Now, Indiana State Prison, especially at that time, was a very racial place. It was very violent. It's still very violent, but they've tried to minimize it as much as possible. But as far as maximum security prisons, there's only 2 old school maximum security prisons left in Indiana, and that's Indiana State Prison and Pendleton Correctional Facility. And they're still to this day wide open. And people are losing their lives every year. Every few months, people are getting brutalized, and nobody knows. Now, Ronald had to grow up in this environment. At 15, he walks beyond that wall. I mean, the little clip I had showed you kind of gives you a brief feeling of who Ronald is and how he views of who he was. Now, there's a couple of interviews with Trevor McDonald. Feel free to look them up. They're great interviews. One of them is from some years ago, and Ronald was a younger man, you know, looking at the rest of his life and then some behind that wall, had no hope. And of course, you're going to be getting into some trouble here and there. You're going to be getting into some fights. But one thing that man's never done in the 35 years he's been behind that wall is catch a new case. So he's not back there killing people. He's not back there doing things like that. You know, committing any sex crimes against men. None of that. None of that, man. All he's done is develop himself into one of the smartest individuals I've ever met. When I met him, his earliest possible release date was 2070. And he now comes home August 23rd, 2024. Now, I can't say that any of my videos had anything to do with it. I just wanted to share about my friend and everything. But it leads me into some other things. There's so many men that have rehabilitated themselves inside these prison walls. And rehabilitation isn't provided. Rehabilitation is within one's own mind. And you're just put in a place so you can rehabilitate yourself. Now, there are prisons that offer programming and amazing things, but this prison is not that. When I went through the reentry program, which is a mandated program everybody has to go through before they go home. Time out. Time in. So in 2015, I was in their reentry program, which consisted of maybe 2 weeks or something like that. And it was like 3 classes a week. It was a joke. The most prominent, important thing that they taught anybody in there was how to write a check. And, you know, I had been a short timer, and prior to going, didn't use checks. Very rarely used checks since the early 2000s. Not many people, well, at least, you know, mid 2005, a lot of things started going online, and they're teaching you how to write a check. It was the most pointless time of the most unimportant thing is how to write a check. They're going to need to know a lot more than to write a check on how to reenter society. And myself, I can't, you know, I was only there for 3 years. And I know 3 years was a long time to many people. It was a long time to me. But it kind of being in there when the guy next to me's earliest release date's 2070. And I'm here 6 months out the door, like, they're teaching people to write checks. I mean, you got to be kidding me. One of the guys in the reentry class had been there for 46 years. Yeah, and he was released the same day I was, and they didn't prepare him for anything. And unfortunately, that man had reoffended, but he only had to serve 6 months. It was just he wasn't following the rules because he didn't know how. He had, for 46 years, been told when he can eat, when he can sleep, and everything else in between. He'd been institutionalized for a very long time. He had went in at 17 years old. No, he was in his mid-60s, just not a clue. He wanted to go back to prison. He did not want to leave. And I just pray that my boy Ronald, which I honestly feel that he has a better chance than most. But I pray that my friend succeeds and he embraces it and accepts it, because it's going to be the most horrifying thing of his life. This is going to be more horrifying than walking into that prison. I know I was terrified to walk out of that prison, and I had only been there a few years, you know? I'd only done a few years, and walking out of that prison, I was so scared. I didn't sleep the night before or the night I came home. None of that. No sleeping. Couldn't. It was hard, guys. But, you know, I just wanted to touch back on Ronald Sanford. His release is coming up August 23rd. So, I want you guys to, you know, think about him and hope he does better. But I'm going to be bringing a couple videos this weekend. I know I'd been out this last week. I had RSV, and that was just a wicked one. I could barely breathe, and I'm still getting over it. But, you know, I do feel a lot better. But anyways, guys, never forget life's choices. And hit that like and subscribe. Hit that channel if you want to help out. And never forget, if you ain't hating it, you ain't making it.